Hello, and welcome. It is, of course, Solo Tabletop RPG Friday. It's hard for me to say that, given that it's Sunday for me, but that's the way galactic calendars work. So, assuming that things are working, which they theoretically are, let's get to it. So, as always, I am your host, Casimir Basilius, Imperial Lord. And yes, so today we're going to be doing things different, I suppose, in a sense. I mean, of course, it's going to be tabletop RPGs, and it's going to be, well, it's ever so slightly different. We're going to be taking things slower today, far slower, and we are going to be talking about descriptives, I suppose. Not necessarily writing descriptives, it isn't World Building Wednesday, of course, but just talking about the world. In a sense, world building, but not really. I mean, yes, it is technically world building. Look, it works. So, let's get to it. Where to begin? Well, obviously, by making sure things are working. It has been a week since, well, a bit less than a week, but it's been a while since we last did this. Of course, that is because I've had some Imperial business that I've had to attend to, which has been attended to. Empire management and all that. Meetings with generals and admirals and other Imperial lords. Boring stuff. So, we return. We've missed News Tuesday, which we should have next News Tuesday up and set, theoretically. And next Wobbling Wednesday should be prepared. So, well, I'm a little unprepared. I say a little unprepared, not really unprepared. I mean, what does one need to prepare? I wrote the system, well, I wrote the lore and the stuff. I heavily modified the system that we use to run the game. Basically, it's all custom, other than roll d20 to solve things, like all that. So, like I always say, I can run Galactic Requiem at any time. I need very little to run Galactic Requiem. When I say I'm unprepared, I mean more so I didn't have I usually spend some time setting up before we broadcast. Instead of spending time setting up, I took a walk around the garden for, well, half an hour. The half an hour I was supposed to be preparing. So instead of preparing, I got back from the walk and then realized, oh, I have almost no time to set everything up. So, here we are. But that's more broadcast than it is the actual dice stuff. Well, I mean, I do like spending some time considering what we're going to do in any given session. Of course, it's solo, so the bot runs it to a degree, but I like having ideas, because I have to interpret what the bot says. The bot doesn't really do much other than provide. I mean, it does a lot, but it provides situations and scenarios. I have to interpret them, so I have to be in the right state of mind to interpret and all that. So there's some prep involved, even if it is just spending 5 minutes thinking and getting in the mindset of running a game or interpreting what the bot says. So yeah. Let's see. Um so yeah, I did think that while on my walk we'd do things a bit different today, which is we're going to explore the world, talk about the world, talk about descriptions of the world. Sort of like less ideally, less rambly, and less world building Wednesday y, but less solo Sunday y. I don't know, a weird middle ground between World Building Wednesday and Solo Sunday. I have said for a long while that we'd take things slower, but I've always failed at taking things slower. So, let's see. Well, let's talk about the world of the city. We do know that the city is near a war zone, currently overrun, but I suppose something we didn't really talk about is the landscape. I mean, it's a bit foresty. I mean, let's pop on over to that map, why don't we? What map is it? I really should name them better. Taking notes, all that. Should work on this map a bit. Not right now, of course, but like the map needs some work. So we're in a very, when I say very, a bit foresty and swampy area. Some mountains off to the right. I mean, of course, we're at the 10 kilometers per square scale, so every one of these is 10 kilometers, as opposed to the larger scale, where every one is 100 kilometers. Every one of these is full ones is 1,000, which is this scale too. Every hex, I say square, hexagon here is 1,000 kilometers. Every one of these is 1,000. Every one of these is 100. Every one of these is 100. These are 10. These are 10, I think. Yeah, so this would be 10, and this would be 1 kilometer. This map was made using the old version. I say the old version. When I say version, I mean an updated variant of how I stole things. But that basically means, in short, we're missing the final section. Usually, there's one more scale. As you can see, they alternate sort of triangle, well, pointy top, flat top, pointy top. So basically, it'd be this one again, flat top. And the one over here would be, if this is 1 kilometer, this would be 1 kilometer, and this would be 100 meters. It would be over here. But, and of course, they'd be labeled. I also didn't label this one, unideally. But basically, that's how it works. And if you're wondering, does that mean that there's, I don't think exponential is the right term in your language, but just for example's sake, even though it's probably inaccurate, does that mean there's an exponential increase in the amount of maps at every smaller scale? To a degree, yes. I mean, this one, no. we know exactly how many of these there are, given that each large square is 1,000 kilometers and each square here is 1,000. We know that there are exactly, given that this is 3 by 3, give or take, basically every little set of this is one of these. Of course, we can do singular. We have singular blocks just in case needed and all that. But you get the point. For these, it's just the exact number of these, not every one square, but every set of them, because every one is. I'm rambling. I said I wouldn't ramble. Um, but every single hex in here is one of these hexes, and every single hex in here is one of these hexes, and every single hex in there would be the final one, meaning there are copious amounts. It's copious amounts of maps to fully map a world, but that's where the traveler saying of map only is really necessary comes in, which I embrace. We only need a rough overview of the world unless we zoom in. Like, we don't need the 100-meter scale unless we're doing an air operation in the game. Air operations in Galactic Requiem, using modern aircraft, usually take place at the 1 kilometer per sub square and the or the 100-meter per sub square for slower. But basically, so the final two are used for like air operations or military scale movement that's on a zoomed in scale. I would bring up the description, but it's really not worth it at this moment. I have a little chart in the mass combat rules that explains what scale it's ideal to do war games on per scale of the war game, basically. Of course, individual, you can have like individual token scale war game, much like, like you would expect from any normal tabletop war game, you would expect in individual tokens and individual unit. Then there's larger scale. I mean, there are war games like that out there in which one unit's like a squad per like little token. I say token, what do you call them? Miniature. A squad is a miniature or a unit or etc. etc. So, we like I always say, we try to simulate a world. We have rules for everything. So we of course have rules for vague. I say vague, but relatively vague. We have very vague too, only relatively vague mass combat, so it doesn't take years to solve a galactic war. You know, slowly but surely, we work on that galactic war. It makes progress. So, as I was explaining to one of my players, one of my relatively new players, everything in Galactic Requiem, much to my ever so slight annoyance, even though I mean, I love it this way, and I also, it causes me trouble this way, both ways, is the rules I follow when running Galactic Requiem are, I have my own set of personal rules when running Galactic Requiem. And in short, I can't break these rules, or I must have really good reason to do so. But any situation you see in Galactic Requiem, like, of course, as a GM, I do make encounters. But anything I make must follow internal game logic. The same applies to larger scale things. How do I put this? The actual galactic war that's going on in game is not, I don't go, well, the systems authority wins this battle. I don't do that. I actively roll the dice for both sides. I use the vague rules, don't get me wrong. I use the vague rules unless players are involved or unless it's important. I'll use the vague combat rules. But it's all actually calculated. even vaguely, but it's all calculated. I don't just go, oh, they're winning this offensive and they're losing this offensive. I apply modifiers, I roll, I see how it goes. The same applies for most things. Of course, when GMing, I do I do have more liberty in how I go about it for creating encounters and all that, but I do have to follow some form of internal logic, which is where nation and organization rules come in. Supplies, well, we use vague variants, of course, but of course, a group only has so many supplies. If you do something, it has an effect, cause and effect. A faction with no forces in an area, I can't just place forces in that area. Of course, as the head designer and writer of Galactic Requiem, I do have liberty to create certain situations, of course, but often things are genuine to things. And even when I invent something or write something, everything has a cost in game, of course. If you destroy a faction's facility, they no longer have that facility. It will have effect on them, etc., etc. Cause and effect. So there's a balance to it, a way things are done following an internal set of rules. Of course, like I said, there's leeway being the writer. Of course, Galactic Requiem started as stories. I say stories, it started as short stories. So, you know, like technically, it all started as short stories I wrote so long ago. The tabletop RPG is designed to simulate the logic and world in those stories. It doesn't always do the best job, given the fact you've heard my complaints. You've heard my complaints. I hate levels. I hate skill caps based on levels. Sometimes I hate certain things about classes. There's a lot I dislike about the system we use, but it's the best. I say it's the best. It's the best we have, and it works. And I often will ask my players, "Hey, I'm considering doing it. Look. I I I talk with my players a lot about the systems and rules, and they help me a lot. They help me a lot. But basically, often I'll go to my players and I'll go, "Hey, I'm I'm feeling that way again. That way I get when I stare at rule books and start hating the rules." I I looked at the class book again. I know we've been over this 100 times. I've looked at the classes again and the skills, and I'm in that mood again in which I hate skills and classes. And every time, basically every one of my players every time responds with "it works." Basically every time they respond with "it works." There's no real need to change it. It works. And then I mumble and walk away back to my stat sheets, unhappy but content, unhappy but reluctantly accepting for a while. And then I forget about it for a while. And then I go to work on Galactic Requiem rules, and it happens again. It's a never ending cycle. We're rambling. I said we wouldn't, but Um, but yeah, it's a never ending cycle. I mean, they're all solutions, but they're all terrible. They're not terrible. It would require overhauling so much, so much. For instance, we'd have to simply rip out, we'd have to rip out every bit of the entire class system, all the classes. We just have to rip them out because everything, every problem, every single problem I have ties to classes and levels. It all ties to classes and levels. I mean, I realize how I'd solve a problem I face, but a problem that always comes up, which is if I get rid of classes and levels and skill requirements for levels, what's to stop a player from putting maximum ranks in a skill? What's to stop that? What determines HP at that point? Well, I mean, I hate HP. I absolutely despise HP. But what determines, I mean, I suppose that's a different problem I don't usually think about because we never get that far. We never get to the problem of HP. Trust me. I know it's a problem, and I have it noted as a problem of if you get rid of levels, how do you handle HP? I have it noted as a problem. I mean, feats, I suppose, I guess. But it's not a problem I've ever gotten to because you'd have to actually get rid of classes first. And there's so many other problems with getting rid of classes that are far more important before dealing with HP, which is such a small issue after dealing with everything else. Anyway, we're way off topic. I'm so sorry. Let's stop rambling it back on topic. Um, so today I sort of just want to talk about the world to a degree. I wanted to describe things, really. That's kind of what I wanted to do, or at least what I thought about doing when I was on my little walk around the garden. Because, let's be honest, for those of you Elysians out there, you don't, I mean, you have a loose idea, but I haven't really described the world to you. Sometimes I feel like I haven't really described the world to you. And we've had talks about the world. I feel like I haven't really described it. Well, let's be honest, there's a lot of worlds out there. It's a galaxy. There's countless worlds. Um, one, I'm fighting. I'm fighting. I'm actively in a battle against myself here. I'm I'm actively fighting myself, saying, "Don't, don't go on that tangent. I beg of you. I beg of you. It's not worth it. Don't go on that tangent." So, galaxy scale, galaxy flat, galaxy not three-dimensional, space map flat, flat space map unideal. The map of space is flat. This annoys me. Trust me, there's no better way. There is no better way. I know what you're thinking. I actively know what you're thinking. Okay, I don't know what you're thinking. But if you're thinking, hypothetical person who is thinking, I know what you're thinking. Here's a better way to do three-dimensional space. You're wrong. You're wrong. Trust me. I've sat here for hours and hours and hours, staring and thinking and thinking and staring. So, as I said, my field of study, it's not astrophysics, but it is astronomy. And I spent quite a lot of time studying astronomy. Not the physics aspect, but just flat, plain astronomy. Stellar class, Hertz-Russell diagrams, stellar classification, all of the basics, all the basics. Some planetology, not the fancy stuff, just, basics, atmospheres, a little bit about telescopes, ways to determine classification. Well, what's in atmosphere using, I forget it's been years, but spectrums of light passing through a star, from a star through the atmosphere of a planet as it transits in front of the star gets you a sort of spectrum that you can actually read to loosely determine what's in a planet's atmosphere. Yeah, crazy stuff. I mean, of course, the data you get is not necessarily easy to get, and it's usually exceptionally well, in a sense, out of date, given the fact that it's any planet orbiting a star that you're doing this to is usually theoretically, like, well, I say theoretically, light years and light years away. So you're seeing it in the past. Light takes time to travel, travels at light speed, so you're seeing it however many light years away it is years ago. Although, as I recall, we can't really see planets very far away, of course, given scale and all that. But planetary transit and all that lets you do that, theoretically. Of course, here where I'm from, we have more advanced science. We can just FTL sensor the hell out of it. Although, we do have certain... Well, do I need to open my big book on the way Starship sensors work? I can. We can do that. There'd be a tangent. No tangents. No. 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 We're not here to talk about Starship design. You see, this is the issue I face. Crazily enough, I enjoy talking about Galactic Requiem. I know, insane. I enjoy talking about the thing I made. Wild. Wild. Caring about the thing you create. Insane. I could ramble indefinitely about Galactic Requiem. The game design of it, the lore of it, the world, the adventures, the short stories. Will let me when I hell running the game, playing the game, solo sessions. We have indefinite, indefinite, infinite, infinite things, Galactic Requiem things to do. There's always a story to tell, or something to talk about, or something to do. Anyway, I am actively you don't understand. You don't understand. I am actively fighting myself to not go off on a side tangent about Starship sensors. Genuinely. I am in a battle right now. We're already on a tangent. We're already on a tangent. We're not going to a second one. Because if we go onto that tangent, we go on to computers and FTL and how that all works. So we're not going on a ship sensor tangent. Nope. We're going to rein it in. Space is flat. It's not actually flat, but the best way to represent it is flat. Now, there's no easy and simple way to do it three-dimensionally. Why don't you use a three-dimensional program? Because there's shit and there's no good way to do it. Okay? Trust me. For ease of player use and ease of doing it all in one program and ease of all that, it has to be a flat map. Okay? Fair. Fair. I hear you, hypothetical individual, saying. But why don't you just put a number representing up and down? Put a number representing up and down. Because surely, I know what you're thinking. Just put a number. And you're not wrong. That is a solution. On the frontier sector map. Okay, here we are. Okay, so hear me out. This will say, just because for ease of explaining my example, this is at 0. It's exactly on the plane. This is 15 light years above the plane. Okay? How would we handle that? Well, visually, we can do that easily. Visually, I say easily. It would take effort. Now, effort's not necessarily bad, but it'd take a lot of effort for little gain. Like, we'd have to go into every single system, figure out where it is on the thing. We add that as part of our generation because we randomly generate locations of objects in star systems to try and remove bias. That's not from laziness. That's from me trying to remove bias, honestly. Because the way we used to generate. So, my fear is human brains, or Terran brains, are biased. If I randomly place stars on a map, I'm going to have certain leanings. I'm going to say, hmm, I think this one should go here. I think that one's too close to this one. So let's move this one a bit further away. I like the shape of these ones. Whatever, when I'm placing the stars on the map, even if I try to not have bias, I'll think certain things, and unconscious bias will come into my placement of objects on a star map. And I fear that. Not really fear, but I don't want that to happen. So, what I moved to was rolling a bunch of dice I had. They weren't normal dice, they were like little picture dice. I'd roll them, see where they landed, and then place that on the map. That took quite a bit of time, but also rolling and interpreting also had problems because some of them, there's no nice square to roll them in. And if you roll dice in a square, depending on how you roll the dice, they're going to land in a weird way. Like if I roll with my left hand to the right, the dice are going to roll to the right and be leaning on being to the right side of the grid. If I roll to the left, same. If I just drop them, less so, but there's still how you roll affects where they land if you're going just by placement. So eventually, we ended up with a good comrade of mine making a random generator that places them randomly using the parameters I supplied and the coding of my good friend to make it so we can input literally just a couple of numbers, hit enter, and it will randomly generate a map. Just takes the bias out of it, makes it quicker and easier, especially when generating, like, do understand. Before, I had to do every single subsector individually 100 times per sector. This one was done by hand. I'm pretty sure, yeah, this one was done by hand. Every one of these 100 was rolled and inputted by hand. Me worrying the entire time that things were wrong. Placement was biased and all that every single 100 times. This one's faster. Because also, when doing that, it's a long story. Anyway, in short, you'd have to figure out what the numbers are, figure out how to generate the numbers of height or above or below galactic plane, input the thing on each thing when placing it. And that's a lot of work. A lot more work than should be put into it, per se. Okay, but let's say we wanted to put that work in. Now, when playing the game, you would have to measure distance, so that's 2, but it's 15 light years up. And of course, we want to be accurate. Why don't you just do it in light? Because it's just actually that many light years. FTL distance based on light years, so there's a lot more math involved in moving, and it's it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Trust me. Traveler doesn't do it. Stars Without Numbers doesn't do it. It's it's not Star Wars. The tabletop RPG doesn't do that. It's not none of them. None of them. There's very few space tabletop RPGs that do that because it's just not worth it. It's not worth making space 3-dimensional. Trust me. It doesn't add anything you can't just do with it being flat. It just adds work for no real benefit. Okay. But it does, the complaint this gets to is, my complaint is it does mean there's fewer stars and star systems in the galaxy than there should be. But, that's what we have to live with. Anyway, that's that tangent. Um, so, back to focusing on what we should focus on. Just drinking some water there. So, basically, in short, lots of different worlds out there, all sorts of different terrains and landscapes, and as you've seen from our World Building Wednesday, if you've seen our World Building Wednesday, I love planetary descriptions. I absolutely love descriptions. Being a crazy enough, being a writer, I love descriptions. Um, so basically, what to do. Basically, in that's what we're going to do. Talk about those descriptions, but actively. So let's swap back over to the proper map. Finding the proper map's always the hard part, isn't it? So, I've been over this before. We, when playing Galactic Requiem, are not limited. And that's what I feel like I've been implying in a sense. We don't have to do combat. We can wander around the world. There's literally, I say literally, but there's basically infinite possibility. Because as I always say, it's a simulated world. Well, universe, but basically, start a business, assuming you have the money. Get a starship, assuming you have the money. Travel, assuming you have money. You need space money. You need lots of Galactic Standard credits. You need lots. I mean, to do anything good. I mean, there's a lot you can do without a lot of credits, but, the adventurer's life, you need credits. At least to start. I mean, honestly, having a starship, that's important. I mean, not everybody has a starship, of course. Some people take basically public transit or or corporate transit via, sort of like planes, but for space. And but having a ship opens so much possibility, and that's what You learn all this once. That's on our list. Things we've been over. You learn all this once a ship because it would allow us to do so much. Getting a ship, however, is expensive. Once we have a ship, there's a lot we could do. Um, but ships cost money. They always do. A lot, even. I mean, dream ship, Corvette. If you and all this had a Corvette, things would be going great. Corvette is the one. Yep. But not item catalog. You know, we should get the bot to generate us a mission, an overarching mission. I need to focus on using the bot a bit more. I've been failing at using the bot. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've been using the bot, but not optimally. The bot can be used far more optimally. Um, Here's what I'm looking for. But yeah, I mean, I want to show off so much about Galactic Requiem because there's, like I said, there's infinite possibility. And I want to show off all of it. I want to show off running a business. I want to show off mass combat. I want to show off all of it properly. I also want to just show off the world. Hell, I want to run around the world. Don't get me wrong. I like playing Galactic Requiem. I like watching you learn all this go about her business. So much so, that I have considered uploading my brain. I mean, it's already technically uploaded. It's not like it's different. But basically, remote projecting digitally into, well, just a random body to go on crazy adventures, far more risky. Because, of course, I don't want poor Yulena Aldous to die. But, you know, being an Imperial Lord, I have both the money and finances, and, of course, brain backup to just basically download into a combat body or any variety and just run around the galaxy. I mean, it would cost me basically nothing. And there'd be no real risk. Of course, I'd do it more stealthily, of course. I wouldn't want anybody to know that I'm running around out there. Of course, there's dangers to that. Being an Imperial Lord, both, well, in multiple senses, because, I mean, Galactic Bank would be mad to a degree. The Galactic Bank would be very mad. They hate that kind of thing. Second, well, no amount of money will make them happy. I was thinking maybe I could pay them off because, you know, copious amounts of credits from running 3-star systems. But the Galactic Bank, I can't afford to pay the Galactic Bank off. I'm only an Imperial Lord. Now, for any citizen of the galaxy, that's quite a statement, isn't it? An Imperial Lord, I can buy an entire fleet of ships. I earn hundreds of thousands of credit units, meaning trillions, quadrillions of credits. I could buy a fleet. But, I mean, no, nowhere near enough to stop the space bank from. You can't pay them off. They have all the money. Doesn't work. But still, it'd be fun to run around the galaxy personally. But of course, I can't just abandon my post. So Ah, imperial life. How I long for the days of being a conscript, running around, serving the Empire, going from planet to planet. The good old days. Hmm. I was a spider tank once. Yes, good times. See, that's the glory of mind uploading and neural data pads, but mind uploading. I mean, mind uploading. It's not something reserved for the rich per se. Anybody can mind upload. That's cheap. It's mind backup. That's expensive. It's backing up yourself. That's where they get you. Upload, real cheap. I believe it's. Okay, so whenever I say real cheap, do remember I'm an Imperial Lord. I I run 3-star systems, so my definition of cheap and your definition of cheap may not align, but I'm pretty sure mind uploads like. I mean, we can check. 100,000, something like that. Assuming it's not free on your world, it does really depend. Some worlds give you that kind of thing for free, of course. Really depends on your culture. That one's usually depends heavily. But where I'm from, usually costs money. And in most of the galaxy costs money. But mind digitization will run you 50,000 to 100,000 bucks. Usually. Not not counting the processing you need. The processing you need can run 30,000 bucks. So 80,000 to 130,000, give or take. But I mean, technically, it's a cheap form of immortality. Cheaper than, well, going in repeatedly over time and getting basically, what's the word for it? Biological mortality treatments constantly. I say constantly, but every several years. Cheaper than that. Buying an immortal body, very expensive. Uploading your mind, and then buying, well, cheap droid bodies that will basically last forever. Cheap, very cheap. And, well, it also makes you resistant to dying from normal means. I mean, if you download into a biological body, eh, risky. It really depends on if you store your data on-site or off-site and what processor you're using. So, honestly, if you're asking me, I'd never go with a biological processor. I mean, there's reasons you might want to go with a biological processor. Like if you're a caster, I suppose. If you're lucky, you can still cast. Magic's weird that way. Um, but a robotic processor with redundancies, if you get your body blown up, you're not going to die. Hell, I mean, if you get the good kind of mind upload processor, you can just go dormant, even with a biological uh, processor. You can go dormant in your neural datapad chip. Just go dormant in the chip. Of course, you have to be retrieved. So, like, even if you get headshot, assuming your little neural datapad chip is fine, you're fine. I mean, it might not be the most pleasant process, but, you know, it's a form of immortality. So, yeah, there's that. Um, but yeah, mind upload. I mean, like I said, copying. illegal, very illegal, or at least the Galactic Bank says so. They have rules, laws involving, well, identity and all that. And well, if you copy your brain, they're both you, and the bank gets mad. Even if you have an agreement, the bank gets mad. But I mean, it's not illegal everywhere. There are places in which the bank can't reach and doesn't reach. But, you know, they pressure most of civilized space in places in which they exist. So, but, I mean, yeah. I mean, you're free to back up your brain, assuming you have the money and processing power. Backups, not where they get you. It's if both of you are active at the same time, alive, if you will. That's when they get mad. Because whose account's whose? I mean, suppose they can try and open a new account, but a lot of the way the bank tracks things via your account is tied to you. So it's very hard to, well, hack, and they basically always know who you are. I mean, if you want me to get into my conspiracy, if you want me to go full conspiracy, I can. I do on occasion. It's how they track you. It's how they track you. You see, so the bank works with the governments, you see, to track you. They know where you are, and they have your personal data. You see, if you access the bank, they need your code, and often, they'll scan you. They'll scan you. And then there'll be questionnaires and all that. You ever wonder how, if you do swap bodies, biological bodies, which is definitely like completely legal. I mean, you know, mind upload and swapping bodies is legal. But the questionnaire they give you, the brain scan, the other scan, all that, all the scans and everything they go through, and your codes, and if you have a neural data pad, the authentication. For those of you without neural data pads, the authentication, you know, is far more annoying. But in short, everything you go through, I mean, it's almost instant. Will be, to be fair, it takes less than a minute to go through. But because I mean, if you're going to any of the things, they just sort of scan you when you approach the machine. But and of course, you know, communicate with it with your neural data pad if you have one. Anyway, I say it's a process, like it's time consuming or anything. It's not, but still, the process happens. So wherever you go in the galaxy, the bank knows where you are because they have to. They know where their machines are. They know you're accessing your account from somewhere else. Now, yes, the Galactic Bank often, often assures you that they don't care what you're doing, that they don't share your information, even with the local governments. They say that. Yeah, they say your bank account is perfectly secure. They say they will protect your information. They don't care that you're doing illegal activity on your bank account. They don't care. Or do they? Because they know where you are. They know that you're connecting your account with someone else's account and transferring them funds. Now, yeah, you might not write in your statement, hey, I'm transferring 5,000 credits for this illegal assault rifle. Yeah, you're probably not going to note why you're making the transfer, but they know a transfer's been made. They know who you've made the transfer to. They know. Now they say they don't check it. They say that. But they've scanned you. They scan the transactions. They know when these transactions happen. They know whenever you visit a bank. Whenever you go through customs, you think they don't know that you've, even though they're not technically tied to any individual government, even though they're not technically tied to a government. You think they don't know when you go through a government checkpoint and customs to get into a star system? Oh, they know. The Galactic Bank knows. They know where you are. They know what deals you're making. Well, they don't know the deals, but they know when currency transfers hands. They know who it transfers to. Mm. But yeah, um, and mind you, oh that's not ideal. Things are beeping at me. Well, that was weird timing. I was saying, and I'm telling this all to you as an Imperial Lord. Now, if you're thinking, but Basil, the Empire, you hate every non-Imperial faction. You in fact even hate other Imperial Lords. Not all of them, but Imperial Lords fight each other. Yeah, but the Empire, even the Empire, supports the Galactic Bank. Hmm, think about that. We, who do not acknowledge any of the galaxy, we don't acknowledge the galaxy's rule over itself. The Council, we don't acknowledge them as a government. The Commonwealth, we don't acknowledge them as a government. We don't acknowledge any galactic faction. We have troubled relations with any individual corporation. We believe that they are not, well, they're independent. We have independent corporations, but we believe that they're renegade, rogue, not paying their taxes to the Empire. So, we acknowledge they exist. Of course, we acknowledge other nations exist from like a technical standpoint, just that they're in illegal defiance of the Empire, basically. Everybody is. We don't acknowledge that. We don't believe that of the Galactic Bank. The Empire doesn't even have sway. Well, we have sway, but we don't, we ignore the bank. We don't even go, they're an illegal entity, even on like paper, which should concern you greatly. The fact that even the Empire simply does not object to the existence of the Galactic Bank. Now, of course, the Empire accepts Galactic Standard, and the bank is a part of the Galactic Standard system. Maybe that's why, right? 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 Better hope that's why. Because the alternative is far more frightening, isn't it? But we'd have to get into history for that. A lot of history. We'd have to go back to the pre-FTL era, the pre-colonization era. Back when there were no Galactic Standard credits, there were no Galactic Standard system. There was none of that. Technically, the origins of the Galactic Standard system started with the slower-than-light traders that traveled between star systems. Eventually, once FTL was used widely by the lesser nations, I say lesser nations, but the modern nations, non-ancient nations, is when the beginnings of the Galactic Standard System technically came into place. One could argue. There are hints here and there, theories that the Galactic Standard System goes back beyond the pre-FTL era to the arrival of the Empire. But technically, it is heavily believed that the Galactic Standard System goes back to the beginnings of the FTL era, shortly before the FTL era, during the slower than light era is when it started spreading due to trade and all that, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, no one, it's not like it was, this is the Galactic Standard. It was many different smaller systems and agreements that eventually unified into a modern block, as we call it, that initiated the connection of star systems and all that, using all these subsystems that eventually coalesced into what we would describe as the Galactic Standard System of units and measurements and currencies and language, which the Empire supports. There are people who would even argue that it is due to the invention of the Galactic Standard System that basically they would argue that that's why the Empire was hostile to the ancient nations, is this lack of understanding or some bullshit like that. I mean, we'll be honest, they're wrong. Now, like, technically, probably all of this is going to be, like, redacted, given that it's ancient imperial history, but, like, let's be honest, no. It wasn't some communication error as to why the Empire went to war with the ancients, no. It's because they, this is definitely going to be redacted, is because the ancient nations have technologies that the Empire views as a threat. The Empire views as restricted. Technologies the Empire views that nobody should have. Of course, there are certain technologies that exist, technically speaking, through various methods that the Empire does not believe other nations should have. For instance, dimensional technology. Any ability to transit between dimensions is considered highly restricted by the Empire. The Empire will, in fact, go to war with any nation with the ability to transit between dimensions. Of course, the Empire has that technology, being the Grand Dimensional Empire. Of course, we shorten it to the Empire or the Grand Empire, but in short, originally, like, what we're called is the Grand Dimensional Empire because we are there's no grander dimensional empire than us. There are many empires, but none are grander than us either, so it's just the Grand Empire. No need to go Grand Dimensional Empire. Besides, people get thoughts. They'll start thinking. They'll start thinking that we're dimensional. We travel between dimensions. Then they'll start wondering about technology, which we don't want them to do, given that dimensional travel is restricted. Same with time travel. We don't time travel, don't get me wrong. Even the Empire doesn't time travel. It's just theoretically possible to time travel. So it's restricted. Now, time travel is not common. It's not like it's a thing that ever really occurs. There are very, very, very few cases of it happening. Very few. And the Empire hates them all. In fact, we actively, well, generally we kill things that are involved in that. Of course, we are dealing with the easiest way to time travel would be, well, this is going to be heavily redacted, of course. The easiest way to time travel is, of course, with eldritch entities. Technology to time travel is not a thing that is easily acquired. It's not like it's let's put it this way. It is of the highest tech levels. It's not something that is done. And when I say certain technologies are restricted, like the Empire, any Imperial Lord can build legally with Imperial law a dimensional drive. Dimensional technology is allowed in the Empire, just not for non-Imperials. Of course, it's restricted to lords and all that. I say lords, but like, leadership. You can't be a citizen with a dimensional drive. I mean, you could get a permit, technically, if you want to like travel between Imperial-controlled dimensions. But in short, in very short, it is even illegal for Imperials to have time travel technology. Not that even Imperial Lords have the technology to do that, because it's of the technology that's usually higher than even the standard that Imperial Lords have. But in short, like it's possible to build technological devices to allow you to time travel. Backwards, that is. Forwards is easy, just fly towards a black hole. As for, but yeah, the easiest way is probably deal with eldritch entities, eldritch deities, spatial anomalies, that kind of thing. Although spatial anomalies are rarer than eldritch entities that can help you do it, but point is, it's restricted. I mean, we're already getting half of this restricted by the Empire. It's just going to be bleeped all of it. But like yogg is, of course, an eldritch deity that grants, well, the eldritch deity of sorcerers and magic, and also grants travel both through space and time. Of course, contacting yogg is not such an easy thing to do, but like point being, there's ways. Empire will hunt you down, but I mean, if you're wondering how the Empire's going to hunt you down, if it's even restricted in the Empire, of course, there's a division in the Imperial Core. I say core, I don't mean the core galaxy. I mean like the part of the Empire that falls under the leader of the Empire that handles such things. We've discussed them before. They don't only handle time travel or any such things. I mean, like it's not like they do a lot. It's rare. It's exceptionally rare that they have to deal with any of this shit. What they mostly deal with is, well, technologies that are illegal. Like somebody's trying to build a dimensional drive, which is far easier to do, or other restricted technologies. That's what they usually deal with, but they are technically allowed to have the technology to time travel. But like I said, it's exceptionally rare. Like the easiest way to do it is to find an eldritch deity, which alone you're more likely to get murdered by the eldritch deity than to succeed at time travel. Besides, the cost to you is probably going to kill you just due to the way eldritch magic works. So, it's not really an issue. And usually the ML only cares if it's on a large scale or a scale that matters. Like, if you convince an eldritch deity to let you travel back in time an hour, like, the Empire's going to be annoyed. We'll know. We'll know. But I doubt we're going to hunt you down over it. Probably. Really depends on how they're feeling on any given day. You know? But, I mean, that's just what we deal with when eldritch deities are a thing. Like, I mean, time casters exist. We don't hunt down time casters, people who distort or affect time on a small degree. Because, I mean, that is an entire field of magic. But, I mean, once again, casters are like 1 in a million, that 1 in 10 million. Magic casters are rare, let alone ones that actually do time magic. Like you're more likely to find a what do we call them? Pyromancer, somebody who sonically lights people on fire than you are to find a, well, time magic user. Hell, you're more likely to find a psychic time manipulator than you are to find a magic time manipulator. But I mean, we do live in a world in which magic, psionics, and deities are around. Not only eldritch, but other deities too. But like, these are rare. Like when I say rare, I mean from a from a meta perspective, from a story plot point, basically never comes up. It's just not a thing. It's happened like once, twice, twice, three, three, four, three, three, hmm, three. I want to say 3 times. Not even in just in campaigns mostly. Implied in one short story, not really implied. It's not really time travel, is it? Prophecy's not time travel. Anyway, basically never happens. Well, we went on a tangent then. I don't know where we are. Generally, things are relatively grounded. Your average society, your average campaign, your average stuff, relatively grounded. At most, you might see a caster. Maybe. Because casters aren't uncommon. Oh, they're uncommon. Like I said, I can get you the exact numbers. I mean, I'll do it. You know, I'll do it. Here we are. Casters. Here's the law section. Okay. On a caster-heavy planet, a planet where casters are everywhere. So we're talking a place in which casting is common, so nowhere in civilized space. Up north, where there's a lot more magic and shit. 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 10,000. And mind you, that's a tier 0 caster. That's a tier 0. 1 in 10 of those are a tier 1. 1 in 10 of those are a tier 2. 1 in 10 of those are a tier 3. And 1 in 10 of those are a tier 4. So, one in 10 million to a million on the most caster heavy planet at most has 1 in 100 people as a caster. So basically, you're looking at like 1 in a million at best is a tier 4 caster. A tier 4 caster being a full real caster. I don't. Hello, I don't think so. I don't think I've ever played Payday. I don't play many video games for the most part. Mostly a dice gamer. Crazily enough. But yeah, so for the most part, casters are rare. Of course, tier 0 have far less points and far less casting ability, and they're more common and so forth. But, like, it's not impossible to meet a caster. I mean, it's why they get paid so much. It's why you and Aldous, our adventurer, while not technically a mercenary worthy of getting paid the top tier, is paid the top tier because she can cast. Yes, she's like a tier 0? What tier is you in all this? Let's bring up our sheet here. Because I don't remember off the top of my head. Here we are. That should be under information. Here we are. Probably should use the search function. Tier 2. She's a tier 2 caster. So not the best, but not a tier 0. But that's why she gets paid the big bucks for mercenary work. Because apparently, well, I say apparently, but casters are rare a tier in civilized space. Let's see. In civilized space, 1 in 10 million for a tier 2, and that's being generous. So, yeah. Let's see here. But that basically is casters, and then, like I said, even rare among them, time casters or anything like that. And even then, in civilized space, casters are highly monitored because they're dangerous. Any caster who knows what they're doing is, well, powerful. Even if you're tier 0 caster. I mean, not every world has certain laws. There's little generator for laws and God in hard rebooting. There are different law tiers in regards to casters based on the world and nation and society, of course. Certain casters or certain rules are less or more in certain areas. Of course, the frontier is a lawless land. So, let's see. Basically, that's the short of that. I suppose we should get back to the topic, which we keep going off. But, I mean, if you don't know that I ramble at this point, but yes, definitely more of a dice gamer than anything. I think the last video game I played was Starfield. And before that, Helldivers. Yes, those are the last two games I played. I don't think I've ever played Payday. But yes, because I finally got Starfield working. Turns out I had installed it improperly. Anyway, but I mean, it's been fun so far. Only played it for like a day or two recently. So when I first got it, it didn't work. Anyway, so, yes, descriptions. That's what I was going on about. Oh, before I got off topic about casting and magic and all that. And then before that, on advanced technologies and time travel. And we got there from like galaxy maps? I don't know. I can't follow my own tangents. Look, I go from tangent to tangent. If you think I can follow my own train of thought there, I am so sorry I cannot do that. My own train of thought is a mystery even to me. So, basically, I suppose that my plan was to describe the world. Well, of course, you'll learn all this current missions in underground place. I'm thinking like at some point soon, we are going to simply wander about the world, not necessarily on mission. Because I quite enjoy that. I keep saying we will, but we keep getting missions. I say keep getting missions, we keep going on missions. I choose to go on missions. Um, but then again, that's Yulan Aldous' character, isn't it? Yulan Aldous is the kind of person who's dedicated to her objective. But we do need a starship for that. Ideally, that's what I was talking about, Dream Ship, which is a corvette. Problem being, a corvette costs money. A corvette costs, military starships, average costs, in the 20 millions. In the 20 millions. And you learn all this has 80,000 galactic standard credits? 90,000. Not bad, but a bit shy of 20 million. Even a bit shy of the about 2 million also needed for a gunboat or gunship or dropship, depending on how you want to classify it. Honestly, they're the same tier of vessel. It's just their role, really. A dropship not meant to carry people, but meant to shoot is a gunship. Or a patrol boat, if it's meant to patrol about, although corvettes also can be tiered as patrol boats. If you want to be technical. But yes, there's lots of ship classes to theoretically be used. If only we could get one. That was our plan, isn't it? To steal an FTL-capable dropship. Well, to steal a dropship and steal a vehicle that can fly and get across the line of the war zone to deliver the target. Ideally, you learn all this, the plan is to steal something with FTL capability. Once we do that, we can theoretically cross the little military zone, give our target, and then we have an FTL capable ship. Easier said than done. I would settle for a space yacht, which is debatably easier to get. Very much debatably easier to get a space yacht. Although, to be fair, getting a military ship of the dropship class is actually easier than it has ever been. in current situation we find ourselves in, given that Yelena Aldis is next to a war zone. Although there's a significant chance the dropships won't have FTL, and that's the problem. But if we can get one with FTL, that would be ideal. Given the fact that we're so close to a war zone, it is more likely for us to be able to get one with FTL, or even just a dropship in general. An opportunity we don't want to waste. Of course, we're going to have to go to the surface for that. It's unlikely we'll find one underground. Let's see what part of the map we have. Retrieval overview. Here we are. Hmm. Okay. Do I have to head to the city proper? Do you have a map for that? Let's go to the world map. Here we are. Um, huh. Well, there's probably going to be a way to go about it. I mean, if they head to a different part of the city, so it's not going to be too hard, though. The problem is surviving such an account. I mean, probably going to be less military oriented, but we could steal a corporate ship, raid a corporate tower. It's not like we care. We're not even from this world. And I doubt Yulan Aldis cares all too much about worrying about that kind of thing. Neither do the mercs, probably. So, yeah, it actually seems a bit more viable than trying to find a military landing site, still a corporate one. Although if it's a corporate one, I mean, they're probably gearing up security and all that. There's a war, probably moving assets out of the city, given that the border's shifted. Actually, the perfect time to find a corporate dropship. Once more. Or yacht. Anything like that, really. The hard part, once again, is making sure it has FTL. Now, that's not what we need for the mission. The mission just needs to fly. It can literally be a helicopter, although a helicopter is more likely to get shot down, to be fair, but something fast, ideally a dropship. But the issue we face is FTL. What are the chances it has FTL? Which is not necessarily for the mission, but something we want, because we want to take the vehicle. How far are they? 3 kilometers? No, 30 kilometers. $80 kilometers? Hmm. The artillery is about 80 kilometers away from the city. The support forces are 2 kilometers from the entrance up to 20 to 30 kilometers. Then we could push through with units. It's gonna be risky. Honestly, best chance we have to get a ship. So that's ideally the plan. Steal a ship. Corporate ship. Probably better than military. Not in stats or anything like that, but just in ease of stealing. So I suppose next session we're going to raid a corporate tower. Which is going to be, it's going to have its own issues and benefits. I mean, we have a vehicle, so we could fly in, but we can't fly everyone in, which is the problem. And once we steal it, we basically need to cross the border. The question is, how do we get our supplies out? Yuan Aldis stole an infantry mobility vehicle that she kind of wants to keep. So the hard part is getting that in there and lifted off. Hoverbike's easier, it hovers. I see a few solutions and problems. We will have to figure something out. No, I mean, easier said than done. We'll figure something out. Anyway, so that is going to be the plan for next Solo Friday. We're going to actually raid a corporate site. I suppose we'll go over a little bit of details of it right now. And then on World Building Wednesday, we'll prepare the corporate tower, either that or on a work day. We'll figure it out. We might prepare it live, might not. Once we get out of the city, ideally if we get a ship, we'll do more chill stuff. I mean, raid on a corporate tower should have a lot of action, theoretically. Probably take a couple of sessions, honestly. Maybe. Not sure how it will go. And then, if we survive and get out with a ship even, we'll spend some downtime exploring the world. Probably. That's the plan, anyway. Um, yeah. So, I think that's where we will call it for the day. Well, let's figure one last thing out, I suppose. Oh. And that last thing specifically being, we're going to raid a corporate tower with our allies. Let's go to that map. Yeah, I don't really have any questions for it. No, we'll just call it there. Besides, I need to go and get a coffee. So, anyway, bit of a slow day. We got nothing done. We didn't even get done what the plan was to get done. Went on too many tangents. We will try and cut back on the tangents next time. I will try and not ramble about game design on not World, Solo Friday. Yes. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by. And as always, I've been your host, Catherine Basilius. Ideally, Arma will be on Sunday, probably, instead of Saturday. I believe that's the plan. Maybe. Not sure. Depends on the Arma group. And we should have news, galactic news, that is, on Tuesday. World Building Wednesday, we'll work on game design. Or world building, we'll work on world building. Design the map, maybe. Definitely write some paragraphs about world building. And on Friday, we'll get back to actually assaulting a corporate tower. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed. As always, I'm Casimir Basilius, Imperial Lord. And I hope that you, yes, you, have had a wonderful day.